Put on your imagination hat. It's a Saturday night in 1966. The hi-fi is spinning a bossa nova record. The hors d'oeuvre laid out on the teak sideboard. And the air is thick with the scent of filter cigarettes, hairspray, and gin. In this era, social etiquette was a carefully choreographed dance. You kept your polite distance, you minded your P's and Q's, and you certainly didn't go around entangling your limbs with your neighbor's spouse on the living room floor. But then a flat piece of vinyl with 24 colored dots arrived, and suddenly the swingin' 60s got a lot more literal. You were watching the Mid-Century Vault. I'm Philip Mershon, and we are going to look at the game that broke every social rule of its time, Twister. In 1964, an advertising man named Ren Geyer was working on a promotion for the Johnson Shoe Polish Company. The idea was that the shoe polish customer could mail in a proof of purchase and $1 and receive a floor mat game that he called King's Footsie, and it involved only feet. Well, then he hired two designers, Charles Foley and Neil Rabins, to refine the concept. Well, they had the idea that adding hands into the mix made the game infinitely more chaotic and hilarious. They wanted to rename it Pretzel, but because that name was already trademarked, they settled on the name that Geyer actually hated, Twister. See, to Geyer, a Midwesterner, a twister was a devastating tornado. He had no idea that his game was about to blow the roof off the toy industry. When Milton Bradley picked up the game in '66, they didn't realize that they were holding a cultural hand grenade. You have to remember, this was the first time in history that a mainstream board game used human beings as the playing pieces. The retailers were horrified. The idea of men and women, even fully clothed, contorting themselves into close physical proximity was considered scandalous. One disgusted insider denounced it as sex in a box. Even the giants at Sears refused to carry it in their catalog, deeming it as socially inappropriate. By the spring of '66, the sales were so dismal that Milton Bradley was about ready to pull the plug and stop production entirely. But they had one final PR Hail Mary pass left, and it turned out to be the game-winning touchdown. On May 3rd, 1966, the fate of Twister solidified forever when Johnny Carson featured the game on The Tonight Show. His guest that night was the Green Acres co-star Ava Gabor, who coaxed Johnny onto the floor to play the game with her. Well, the combination of Gabor's lustiness in a low-cut dress with Carson's uptight Nebraskan reserve getting tangled caused the studio audience, and I'm guessing the audience at home, to completely erupt. It was playful, it was slightly risque, and it was undeniably a comical blast. In an instant, that scandalous game became the must-have. The next day, the only store in New York that still had any stock, the original Abercrombie & Fitch, had a line down the block before they even opened. Milton Bradley sold 3 million copies that year alone, and even Sears changed their tune and started selling the game. Actually, it wasn't just a game, it was another brick removed from the uptight, rigid social walls that would come down over the course of the '60s. And of course, soon it started to shed its naughty adults-only vibe and became more of a wholesome, hilarious pastime for families and for kids' parties, which is how I was introduced to it. Today, it's still a staple of the American toy box, so it's easy to forget just how dangerous and instrumental it felt in '66. Do you remember the first time you played Twister? Was it at a chaotic childhood birthday party, or maybe a slightly awkward college dorm mixer? Either way, thanks for joining me in the vault, and until next time, my pals, stay flexible.